All right, so I have been working on a research project for a way to engage our students with autism that have nonverbal. That way they can stay engaged during art class. So I've noticed that, we have a couple of nonverbal friends who come in during the kindergarten group, and sometimes there's days where we communicate and we have a class discussion, and I feel like sometimes behaviors come out whenever those kids aren't engaged. And so I wanted to research ways that I can keep those students engaged and ways that I can make the discussions more fun for them and get them involved with the kindergarten group. So I created some research questions. One of them was, what can I do as an educator to keep those nonverbal friends engaged and participating the whole time? That way the behaviors don't break out. And then I decided to go to their teacher and ask them what are some strategies that they're using in their own classroom that I can carry over into our classroom and get their practice in those areas. So the first thing I did was I met with the teacher, and I asked her some questions about things that they do during class, ways that I could keep them engaged, strategies that they use to get them involved in the discussion. She let me know they were working on the two-choice method, where you put one hand for one choice and the second hand for the other choice, and you let the student pick which answer is the right answer. So I wrote that down, decided to try that out, and that was with both of those students. And I feel like that will help in our class because she uses it in her classroom, so it's something they've already had some practice with, and it'll just reinforce that strategy for them. I also looked up a couple of articles. This article actually helped me out. I looked it up right after we had the interview, and it actually reinforced that knowledge that would help, having the different strategies, using sign language, just repeating things over and over, like repeating words and things like that, so that those students could hear those often and know what they meant. I looked up another article that was a research study, and it involved 21 students who were nonverbal from the ages of 4 to 9. They were put in a program for about 1 to 3 years, and this was supposed to increase their chance of their vocabulary and speaking. There were 3 steps throughout those 3 years to see how they would improve, and as they improved, they bumped up to the next step. It looked like it worked from the study. They gained an average of 100 plus words a year by beginning to repeat what the teachers were saying and signing, and eventually doing it on their own. So that kind of helped out too. It also led to some more questions, which I'm going to get to later on. So I went ahead and I documented, after I had met with the teacher, things that I had tried. And I had tried the two-choice method with student E and student T. And it was successful. One of the students picked the right answer. The other student kind of fumbled around and then picked the right answer. But I noticed for me it was a little hard at first to come up with the 2 choices. So I'm going to work on that, or I worked on that a little later. Okay. So then I went ahead and I emailed the teacher some more questions. I was curious about, especially after I read the research studies, about how long the students had been in that program and been doing those methods. And then I also wanted to know what other resources in the classroom were being used, in case there was anything else that I could use in here, or things that were reinforcing getting the students to talk. So these were the questions I had. I emailed her how long was the two-choice method being utilized, and she let me know that her student growth goal for that year from last year was to improve the student communication skills. So she started this 2-hand method at that time, so about a year ago, with the 2 boys. She said it took the first part of the semester for them to catch on, and sometimes they would still go back to just touching the last choice, which I noticed the other day, by the way. But sometimes what I notice is they start to go with the last hand you touched, and then you can kind of see them think about it for a second, and they switch back to the answer. And then I asked her how long each child had been in the program, because I was curious how long the method had been going on and how long they had been around other students and things like that. So one of the students, student T, had come in August of 2013 in first grade, so he's been here for 2 years. And then the other student, student E, started in January of that school year, so he's been here for 1.5 years, which I thought was interesting too, because it seems like they've made pretty good progress with talking the little bit that they do with only being here for 1 year or 2. So, and then other forms of assistance in the classroom that I was asking about, they do different switches for things like yes and no. She uses the say it and then she signs it, which I thought was interesting. That would be something I would look into in the future. Maybe getting some sign language in there would be good to incorporate. The direct instruction went back to one of those articles that I had in there. Also talked about that, repeating the word blue so that they get blue. And I like how the teacher enforces that even if they make any kind of verbal response, it's still rewarded and it's still an exciting accomplishment, even if it's not the exact word. So that's really great. All right, and then student E, she let me know, was not talking at all, and now tries to repeat some sounds, which I thought was interesting because student T doesn't really try too hard to make the verbalizations. And student E has not been here as long as T, so I thought that was kind of interesting too. So what I've noticed is a decrease in behavior since I've started trying to engage them more. No one's had to leave the classroom, which could be because of other things, but I like to think that it's because of this. I've noticed that there's more of a connection with me and those 2 students whenever I see them in the hallway, whenever I see them outside of the classroom, or whenever I walk up to them to ask them a question. I can tell that they know I'm about to ask them a question and they get really excited that I'm coming near them to ask them a question. And then I decided that I'm going to start working with the other students that we didn't talk about during this research study to go even further and keep all of the students engaged. And then that way, which I've already kind of started trying to do what I can with the ones that know the sign language and that just answer yes and no that we talked about. So I'm going to continue staying in touch with the teacher and the assistants. I would like to let you know about their progress throughout the school year. I'd like to know about different things that you guys are doing in your classroom that could maybe benefit what we're doing in here to keep them engaged. My next goal is to start working with all of the students on the ones that aren't just nonverbal, but the ones that talk but very little and things like that. I would really like to work on that. So this research project has helped me. It's helped me become closer with the students. It's helped me become closer with the teachers. It's helped me as an educator understand ways that I can differentiate instruction to help those students that are maybe a little bit more difficult and don't have the same skills as some of the other students. Okay, any questions? If not, that's okay. Thank you guys for collaborating with me and assisting me in this project. I really appreciate it. That's all I have for you today.